Hey, what's all happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Thanksgiving edition, my Week 13 4 key game picks. Before we talk about week number 13, let's finally get into our current playoff seedings in both the AFC and NFC picture as we head into week number 13. Here is our current seedings going into week number 13, beginning in the AFC. The Chiefs still hold the number 1 seed. The Bills are the 2nd seed. The Steelers are the 3rd seed. The Texans are the 4th seed. The Ravens are the 5th seed, the Chargers are the 6th seed, and the Broncos are currently the 7th seed. On the NFC side, the Lions are currently holding the number 1 seed at the moment. The Eagles are the number 2 seed. The Seahawks are currently the 3 seed. The Falcons are the 4th seed. Vikings currently hold the 5th seed. The Packers hold the 6th seed. And the Washington Commanders are currently holding that last playoff spot in the NFC. Quick whip around from week number 13, from thoughts from week number 12, I should say. Week number 12. Oh boy, the first slate of games in week number 12 was chaotic. And I'm talking about 2 games here. It was Washington, Dallas, and Chicago and Minnesota. The Washington Commanders and the Cowboys going in the fourth quarter was very chaotic as the game went back and forth. All the points were scored in the fourth quarter. Where really much of that game was really an offensive struggle for both teams. How do you like the fact that special teams played an enormous, gigantic role in this one here, and it ended up costing Washington? Missed extra points, especially the big one after Washington was trailing by a touchdown. They come back and score a massive Hail Mary touchdown pass. Well, it really wasn't that Hail Mary type like it was with Chicago, but they almost tied the game in that last second, and then all of a sudden, they missed the extra point, and they ended up pretty much losing. They tried an onside kick, and then Dallas scores an unexpected touchdown from that, and that pretty much sealed the fate for Washington. Now, Washington's a young football team, and obviously they're kind of getting ahead of schedule here. But it's kind of a little bit of a blow to them because of the fact now that the Eagles now have total control of the NFC East now. Basically, now it's like a 3-game lead that they have because they ended up demolishing the Rams in that game. And speaking of teams that got demolished, the 49ers getting demolished by the Packers were practically, they were pretty much helpless because they had injuries. Bosa wasn't playing on defense. They didn't have Brock Purdy. So now there's definitely some panic time if you're a 49ers fan. Your window of opportunity to get back to the postseason is starting to be shut. And the schedule does not get any easier for the 49ers, especially when you desperately need your playmakers. It's going to be interesting to see what will happen in the game against Buffalo on Sunday night. And how about Minnesota? When I'm talking, going back to Minnesota and Chicago here, another blocked field goal in that game. Santos really just hasn't had any good luck kicking field goals lately. Luckily, he made a big one at the end to tie the game after the Bears trailed for most of that game. And then they recovered an onside kick, which has become very rare now in this current NFL. And then they ended up tying the game, but then Minnesota ends up winning in overtime. Once again, Lions still winning games. They've gone up to 10-1 right now. Wasn't a complete dominance against the Colts. I kind of expected that was going to happen. Obviously, I think they're more focused right now. I think they're focused, even though they got the Bears coming up, and the Bears they should take seriously because the Bears are starting to discover themselves, even though this is pretty much a lost season for them. But if you're a Lions fan, you better hope and pray that you dominate that Bears team on Thanksgiving, because to me, the Bears are starting to discover themselves after they got rid of after getting a new offensive coordinator, and they're really starting to show signs of life. And if you're the Lions, you better find a way to basically demolish them on Thanksgiving, because it might be a football game on Thanksgiving. I still expect the Lions to win that game, but other than that, when I look at some other games right now, the Harbaugh Bowl. Jim Harbaugh once again lose to his big brother again, and obviously the Ravens in the game they had to have because they're trying to keep pace with the Steelers for not only for the division but to hanging on to basically keep their playoff positioning alive. And speaking of another team, the Chiefs barely escaping again. They almost lost to a crappy Panthers team that almost beat them, but in the end they ended up winning at the end. So, yeah, it's really hard. Look, as much as I want to say that the Chiefs are really, really struggling and all that, but I feel like this is a troll job. I feel like they're trolling us. And let me kind of explain that a little bit here. Every time we think that the Chiefs might be down and out, but in the end, they find some way to win. And once they get Pacheco, like I said, Pacheco didn't play in this game. I don't know when he'll come back. Once they get Pacheco back for the postseason, they're basically ready to demolish any sort of playoff hopes that you might have. If anybody who faces the Chiefs, I wouldn't want to face them. Especially with Pacheco. He's a big power running back, and he's been really one of the keys in winning for this Chiefs team, even though basically right now the Chiefs are winning by miracle and somewhat of a good defense that they have, especially the way Steve Spagnuolo has really coached that defense. It's really, to me, I don't know. I feel like this is a troll job by the Chiefs that they're doing it to us. As much as we think that we might be able to stop their three-peat, I don't know. If anybody who faces them in the playoffs right now, you better find a way to stop them and end that three-peat. Otherwise, the Chiefs are going for it. They might get it. Anyways, let's get into week number 13. Beginning with key game number 1, I do have a Thanksgiving game, and that is the Dolphins and the Packers. Packers are a 3-point favorite in this one here, and I would say that's about right. Last week, the Dolphins in a big demolish job over the big thrashing of the Pats. Tua was 29 of 40, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Now, for the Packers and Jordan Love, last week was 13 of 23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, in a big victory over the 49ers. Now, the Dolphins are playing very desperate right now because now from here on out, all the way up to the final week of the regular season, they're fighting for their playoff lives now. And these are games that they can't afford to lose. And for the Packers, they're trying to show, as much as, they're basically in good playoff positioning on here, they're trying to fight for that. They're trying to fight also for the division as well, and possibly an overall number 1 seed in the NFC. It boils down to a couple key points here. Now, the Dolphins are still dealing with some injuries right now, and they desperately need Tyreek Hill in this game. He is still going to be questionable going into this game on Thanksgiving night against the Packers. And you got to wonder right now, is he going to have any go-to guys? And is Tua going to have to do this all by himself? Because lately, the Dolphins' defense has struggled a lot. Even though they were able to hold the Patriots at 14 points, the Dolphins' defense has some issues in the secondary. And if Jordan and especially they're having trouble stopping the run as well. And when you get Jacobs going here for the Packers in that running game, I like the Packers in this game, and I'm going to pick the Packers. I think, to me, the Dolphins are going to hit a roadblock in this game. Should be a good one, but I just think the Packers are going to steamroll the Dolphins in the fourth quarter. This might be a football game in the first half, but I think that in the second half, I think the Dolphins pull away. And especially these games for the Dolphins really matter, trying to fight for a playoff spot. I just think the Packers have the better offense, and they're a little bit more of a better team in this one here. And the Packers are trying to fight not only for the NFC North Division, but for that number 1 seed as well. I just think the Packers have the bet. I just think the Packers are a bit of the better team in this one here. The Dolphins are going to hit a roadblock in this one here. I like the Packers at -3 in this one here to beat the Dolphins here. The Packers over the Dolphins. Key game number 2. It is the Cardinals versus the Vikings. The Vikings are a 3.5-point favorite in this one here. And I would say that's about right. The Cardinals really shot themselves in the foot last week against the Seahawks. Now with the Seahawks now controlling first place in the NFC West for the time being. Kyler Murray was 24 of 37, 25 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. It was basically a field goal. They only had field goals in that game against Seattle. And especially now with the Vikings team that is also starting to get some of their mojo back. Sam Darnold, 22 of 34 last week, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions in that big. And well, look, the Vikings got into a game with the Bears, and now there's some question marks on their defense as well. I look at this football game here. If there's a point now, especially the Arizona gets a little break here because the Vikings play in a dome, and once Kyler Murray gets on a groove and starts making plays himself. Or once he gets Marvin Harrison Jr. going here, and they get Connor going and they get Connors in the running game going, there could be a chance on an upset here. But I look at this football game here. I just think the Vikings have the better offense in this one here, especially when you have Justin Jefferson making plays here. It's good. I think this game will go back and forth. I don't think this will be a blowout for the Vikings either, because I think the Vikings defense, they have issues. A lot of them are saying a lot of pundits say they have a complete team. I don't know. Something about their defense I don't trust. Especially in that backfield in the secondary. I really think, to me, that this will be a football game. But I think that I'm leaning towards the Vikings, and I'm going to pick the Vikings here. I just think Justin Jefferson making some big plays for them, and I think they barely squeak out a victory against the Cardinals here. I think that the Vikings are a bit of the better team in this one here, but it'll definitely be a football game in this one here. I don't know if they'll cover the points, to be honest, but I'm going to pick the Vikings at minus 3.5. Vikings over the Cardinals. It should be, I think it's going to be a close game in this one here. Key game number 3. It is the Eagles versus the Ravens. Big game between these two teams here. Especially the Ravens need this game definitely a lot more than the Eagles do. The Eagles obviously have total command in the NFC East. They could probably afford a loss here, but obviously they're trying to fight for that number 1 seed as well in the NFC. Now, Justin Hurts in the big victory over the Rams last week was 15 of 22, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Lamar Jackson in the big victory over the Chargers was 16 of 22, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. There's some question marks here. Now, the defense was able to stop the Chargers' running game. I don't think the Chargers were that physical enough against the Ravens, because I did have some question marks regarding their defense in the last few weeks. Especially for Philly right now on their defensive side. Losing Graham is huge right now because he's out for the season, and that definitely is a kind of a blow to their defense. So now you got to wonder if they're able to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. This is a game that is definitely going to go back and forth here. No question. You got the two key running backs in this one here. You got Saquon Barkley, who's fighting for that MVP. You got Derrick Henry, who's also an MVP candidate as much as Lamar Jackson is. But it boils down to the defense for both these two teams, and this game is going to go back and forth for sure. I think this is a game that both these two teams are going to put up points here. I think this game is definitely going to go back and forth because the Ravens defense really has some issues. They really give up big plays, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Jalen Hurts starts making big plays, and he's pretty mobile himself. So this is a game that is a big-time toss-up. The Ravens are 3-point favorite in this one here, and expect that number to go much lower. I really don't know who's going to win this game because this is going to be a tight ball game all the way. But when I look at it here, I'm going to go actually with the Eagles here. Saquon Barkley and the way he can break tackles, and it wouldn't surprise me. He's a little bit much faster than Derrick Henry, and he's basically been on a mission for making his case for MVP. I'm picking the Eagles in this one. I think this will be an upset here. I think, to me, that the Ravens defense is going to have to find a way, especially, they can do the tush push almost as much as the Ravens can. This is a game that's definitely going to go back and forth in this one here. It's going to be a good one here. I think this will be a great football game, but for some reason I'm smelling the upset here. I think the Eagles are going to upset the Ravens here. It's going to be a tight ball game, so I really don't know who's going to win this football game here. I'm going to pick the Eagles at +3, Eagles over the Ravens. And finally, key game number 4, it is the 49ers versus the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be a very, very quick pick here because the Bills are a 6.5-point favorite in this one here. And this is a key game for the 49ers, big time, even though I could see that this is not going to go in the 49ers' favor at all. The 49ers badly need this game because they're trying to keep pace in the NFC West in a division that is basically all records are the only difference is by 1 game. Now, I'm not going to give any stats to the 49ers because there's no status whether or not that Brock Purdy's going to play in this game because he badly needs to be in this football game to make this competitive. Now, Josh Allen and the Bills had a bye week. They played back in week 11 when they beat the Chiefs. Josh Allen was 27 of 40, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. It's going to boil down to a couple things here. If Brock Purdy's going to play in this game against the 49ers, we don't know the status of Nick Bosa on defense here. And they really need Brock Purdy to play in this game, and they badly need Nick Bosa, and who knows if he's going to play in this game. And the way the Buffalo Bills have been playing, they are on a mission themselves to try to fight for that number 1 seed in the AFC, and they want that home field advantage. It just boils down. A lot of things are against the 49ers in this one here. They're missing Purdy. I don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. He's still having some issues with his shoulder. And then you have Nick Bosa, basically the heart and soul of that defense. He needs to be out there to put pressure on Josh Allen. But it's just near impossible to me, for me to see the 49ers pulling off any sort of upset in this one here when they're missing some key players here. I like the Buffalo Bills in this one here at -6.5. The Bills are fighting for that number 1 seed. They want it in the AFC. They know they need it. And the 49ers are basically fighting for their playoff lives right now because the only thing they could win is the division in order to have any hopes of the playoffs. But the Bills are going to be too much for them. I like the Bills at this one here at -6.5, Bills over the 49ers. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 13. Please check the description below for all of my week 13 picks. And I want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy it with your families and all. Thank you for taking the time to watching this video. And I'll talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for week number 14. Take care and enjoy your football weekend.